Hello everyone, I'm Luca Domingos and today I'm going to be talking about my mini project 1 and 2. And so as you guys can see here, it's called Crime and Violence in Calgary, and I'm going to be focusing more on the code behind it and towards how I got all the graphs. And so let's just start showing you what the project was about. So I'm from Brazil and the violence there is very different compared to Canada, and it's much more greater. And so I was just thinking that's an interesting thing, and though I wanted to see to what extent is crime and violence a problem in Calgary. And so I got this data from Data Calgary, where they have a community crime map with all the information, such as the sectors of the city and the types of assaults that happen in each of them. And so I wanted to know what type of crime is the most prevalent in Calgary. So I made this pie chart with all the types of assaults in Calgary. And then my next question is, has crime rate increased or decreased in the past years in Calgary? And so I made this bar graph, as you guys can see, with the mean number of assaults per year. And next, I wanted to see what region of Calgary has the most frequency of crimes registered, and I also make this bar graph that contains all the regions. And this is just the community crime map I was talking about earlier, and these are some further questions to analyze. So now moving on to the code. So these are all the libraries you need to install and run. So let's just do that really quickly and just clear this first. Okay, and we can start now. Okay, so first what you have to do is you get the link from where the CSV link or the API link where you want to get the data from, and then you're gonna start it as a variable. Then you're gonna run this function called read CSV, which is gonna read the CSV of the link, and then I want to store it as a variable, and I'm gonna use it twice for different things. So I'll store it as two different variables: crime Calgary 1 or 0 and crime Calgary 2. Just run this as well. And so first what I do is I wanted to create for a graph later on, uh, separate this graph into one column only for each year. So you guys can see the data is from 2012 all the way to 2018, and I just want to create separate graphs for each year. As you guys see here, I just use a simple filter to filter the year and select the columns I want. So sector, name, category, crime count, month, and etc. So I do this for all the years, as you guys can see here. And so let's run all of those. Okay. And so next, what I want to do is create another data frame for each of the years, where we just want to select the sector and the category for the purposes of the graphs. So we also run those for each year, and then we just save them as data frames. And then we have here uh, another data frame where we just filter by the sectors, and that's only with table 1. So table 1 is, as you guys can see here, only for 2018. So we're just gonna analyze each sector in 2018 with those functions. So we run these, and this is just summing all of them because I want the sum of the frequencies, because we made tables here with frequencies of the assaults, and so we just sum all of them for each of the regions. And then we make table 1 a data frame so that we can use to create our first graph. So as you guys can see here, I'm gonna make a simple plotly graph with the x-axis being the region and the y being the center, and it's a bar graph as you guys can see here. And these are just the different bars that are gonna appear in my graph. So one for each of the sectors, and it's gonna take the sum of the frequencies as we did over here. So these sums are gonna be entered right over here. So if I run this code, you guys are gonna see that I have my bar graph here, with each of the columns being one of these traces that we add. So next, for the second one, we are going to be naming the x-axis all of these, and since it's also a bar graph, it's gonna recognize that there are gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 bars. And so for the mean, we use table 7, table 6, so all the tables frequencies, we run them. And so for our bar graph, we also have as at the x-axis the years, and as the y-axis the sum of the frequency tables created. So we run this as well. Oh, let me run this part first. Okay, so we run this as well, and as you guys can see, we have this graph over here. So the interesting part about this graph is this last trace here, which we name mean, and it has the information about the mean. And what does this trace does is it adds a second x-axis on the other side, and here we name it and define it. And so this second x-axis contains the means for all the data sets. And so moving on, we have here to run the colors for the next pie chart. And so for the pie chart, we just select the categories for a given year. And so let's just run this, and we make it this is just making the 2018 table selected by category, and then we transform it into a data frame, and then we're going to use this data frame, the PyT, to make the pie chart. As you guys can see here, the labels are going to be the pie chart column names, and the values are going to be the pie chart table frequencies. So if we run this, here's just the layout to give the names, the title of the graph. And so if we run this, we get our graph as well. So moving on, we also have a hypothesis test over here with our second when we scrape the CSV right at the beginning, right over here, you guys can see I created a second data frame called crime cognitive 2, and that's where we use it to make the hypothesis test. And so we select the variables we want again, and so we run this. We further select just 2 variables, and now we run we make a frequency table with those 2 selected variables. We transform it into a probability table. As you guys can see here, we have all the probabilities, and we run a chi-square of independence to see if the category of crime is dependent or independent based on the sector. And if we run this, we get our outputs over here. As you guys can see, the p-value is small, So we accept the null hypothesis, meaning that yes, there is a relationship between sector and category. So some meaning that some of the categories of crime are more prevalent in some sectors compared to other, and that I would guess is in the center. All of them have the lowest p-values. Thank you, and that should conclude my presentation.